So in this step, what we're going to do is we're going to push our Docker image that we've just built with Docker itself, and we're going to push it into our Docker account. Now, I'm not going to actually log into the UI here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to log in locally in the terminal itself. So let's go to the terminal. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to basically kill this process here. So I might need to press Ctrl+C a couple of times. And I'm going to clear the screen. So I'm going to log into my Docker account via the terminal. So I'm not going to log in the UI itself. So to do that, I'm just going to say Docker. And then I'm going to use the login command here. Now I'm going to pass my username with the username flag. So that's my username there. And then I'm going to pass the password flag. So that's going to be password. And then you put in your password here. So whatever you've created your username and your password to be, these need to be entered here locally when you're pushing up. So obviously we're only doing this locally because we want to push this image up locally, or we want to push this image up to our repo in Docker Hub account itself. So I'm going to enter my password and I'm going to continue. So I've now successfully logged in, and it's going to give you a warning to say that logging in via the CLI is insecure, but because we're only using it ourselves locally here, that's absolutely fine. And obviously for our purpose here, this will do. So now we've logged into Docker locally in the terminal. So the next step now is to push this image into our account. Now to do that, we're going to use the Docker command. I'm going to say Docker push, and then we're going to push the name of the image that we just created, or the tag that we created the image with. And if you remember, it was the username and then the name that we used. So I used Nomad, and it needs to be obviously an image that you've built already. So we've got the image, we've logged in, and now we're going to push this image up into our Docker Hub. So it's very similar to using Git version control if you used Git before. So I'm just going to push that up, and what it's going to do is going to push up the image into my Docker Hub account in the remote server. So the Docker Hub is obviously where you can download the images, base images, and you can also store your own custom created images yourself. So this takes a little bit of time, and we'll continue when it finishes. So that's now finished pushing up our Docker image into our Docker account in Docker Hub itself. So if you go back to Docker here, and then we sign in. So I'm just going to sign in with my username and continue. So I've signed into my Docker account here. And as you can see here, I have a few images with different tags. So the one we're interested in is this one here. So the image that we created previously, which we called with our username, and we called it Nomad, is right here. So this image is now the latest image that we've pushed up. So you can create multiple versions, or you can create multiple builds and then push up that image into your Docker account. And then what will happen is the last one is always going to be the latest one if you don't specify a particular tag or a particular version for your image. Now we're always going to be using the latest one, so we're not really going to supply any tagging or any version numbers onto our image itself. So we have our image here, and what we can do is we can pull down that image ourselves. So I'm just going to clear the screen, and to pull the image down, all we need to do is we need to specify the image that we want to pull down. So we're going to say Docker pull, and then obviously we called it the username and then Nomad, and then we're going to pull, because we already logged in here, we can pull down the image that we've just basically pushed. So if I hit enter here, it's going to use the latest tag to pull down the latest image. So if you have multiple images that you've pushed up, it's always going to pull down the latest one, so the last one that you've pushed up into your Docker account. And again, obviously you need to make sure that you're logged in to be able to pull down any images from your Docker account. So this really basically finishes the crash course of Docker for us here. Now, for our purposes, obviously, is we want to make a deployment. So we want to deploy an API into AWS. And for obviously using Docker, this is what we need. And obviously, if you have other custom needs, if you have other things that you need to do with Docker, then obviously, then you can look into Docker a lot more, because it's a lot more powerful than what we've just looked at in terms of building a Docker image and then creating and then running a container from it. So we're really scratching the surface here. But for our needs here, this is more than enough in terms of making the deployment to AWS and making a deployment for our API. So we're done with Docker for now. And in the next sections, we're going to be using what we've done here, and we're going to be building on it, and we're going to be using this image inside our Docker account. So let's continue.